Hello, everybody, and welcome back to day 102 of the road to 2konchess.com. Today we're sitting at 1932, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our 10-minute game for the day. Now, as we're moving through today's game, if you have comments for how I could have played this one better, definitely leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and then finally, if you have not yet, subscribe to the channel, and that just helps you make sure that you haven't missed any of you don't miss any of my future content. So, in this position, after e4, e5, knight c3, the Vienna game, our opponent played the move bishop to c5. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to play the move bishop to c4, which aims to get a copycat Vienna. Now our opponent declines with the move d6. So there's a few different lines that we can do here. The line that I like the most in these positions is actually the move d3. I could also consider playing the move knight to a4, which then goes after this dark square bishop. However, there's just not like a great response after that. But I don't hate it. So let's do this. Let's go knight to a4. Let's create some imbalance in the position. Now, something that I've actually been doing off stream or off recording is I have recently now been studying the what is it called? How to Reassess Your Chess. A really interesting book by Jeremy Silman. So our opponent goes bishop b4. I think here it would make sense to play the move c3. The downside of c3 is the knight is going to struggle to come back. But if I were to play the move a3 and b4, then we expand on the queen side. So maybe I will. I could also alternatively play queen to f3, but that just runs into knight to f6. c3 does prepare the move d4, but like I said, I'm worried about this knight getting trapped. So let's go ahead. Let's play a3, kicking away the bishop. And then here, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to commit with the move b4. And I think that our knight on the edge of the board is less important than their bishop on b6. Now they take back with the c pawn, which feels really weird. This pawn is now incredibly weak. So what I might do here is I'm going to play knight to f3. Our opponent goes h6, preventing any bishop to g4 ideas. And I'm going to strike back in the center with the move d4. Now, I probably should have castled. But I like the idea of queen captures d4, putting pressure over here on g7. And if our opponent ignores this, I plan on doing d takes e5. And if they recapture, I take the queen. So bishop comes out. I'm going to go ahead and take on e5. Our opponent takes back with the bishop, and that creates a very interesting threat. So I'm going to play queen captures f3 with the idea that there's a potential mate threat now on f7. Our opponent can't block with the knight. They can move the queen. And if I push forward, our opponent could just take. This is a free pawn with e captures d6. The knight can now come into c6, which is strong. I do have bishop to f4 ideas, although it does cut off our coordination here. All right. So knight comes here. The threat looks to be pretty clear with knight to e5. I could play the move bishop to b5, but I feel like it loses too much pressure here. So what I kind of like actually is playing the move bishop to b2, which eyes g7, and it defends against the infiltration on e5. This looks like it severely weakens the position of the king, and the king has not castled. So what I'm going to do here is I want to play the move queen to h5, forcing the king in the keeping the king in the center of the board. Really, I guess I should say. The opponent is forced to move over. And now, I think castles is a perfectly reasonable move. Alternatively, I could also play the move b5, which forces the knight away. Let's go ahead, let's get castled, let's get out of the center. If our opponent wants to play knight to e5, I do like the idea of taking. Our opponent can't take this pawn on d6 because there's rook to d1 ideas. And my opponent offers a trade of queens. They also are attacking this pawn. I obviously don't want to hang this. Now, if I play bishop here, I just feel like it doesn't do quite enough. And I am up 2 pawns, so I'm going to trade down. Let's go ahead, let's play the move b5 to kick this knight away, make it uncomfortable. And ideally, I want the knight to go to e5 so I can isolate the f-pawn. The knight goes all the way back. Rook to a to d1 makes sense here, to me anyways. Just developing. Maybe rook to e1 next. Knight comes in. There's a strong square here on c5. But I'm just going to go ahead and play f4. The idea of f4 is to push e5. Our opponent attacks my bishop, so I'm going to slide back 1 square defending. If our opponent goes rook here, I have a4. Now the knight comes in. Attacking here. And here. And what I might do is, being up the 2 pawns, I'm going to rely on these 2 pawns being connected. So I'm going to push e5, and if our opponent takes, we're just going to take back. I think with our opponent's king in the center, as much pressure as they can put, it's not enough pressure. Here, I believe the move rook f to e1 is plenty strong. If takes, I just take back with the pawn. And our opponent is now faced with the task of stopping these 2 pawns. So here, if I play d7, our opponent can block, rook check, king up, and maybe rook over. Or this is defended. So maybe I play rook f1 first, taking this space. I want the bishop to stay here to defend this. I just need to find a way to hold on to everything else. Now, if I play rook here, I threaten to infiltrate on c7. Everything in the center is still defended. Our opponent starts pushing on the side. No matter. Rook to c7 looks incredibly strong here. And I'm going to feast on these pawns. I can also now play maybe rook to f7. The rook comes in. And what if I just bring this rook here? Takes, king takes, rook check, king here, rook check. Doesn't work because the knight's here. Let's go with rook captures d7. I'm up the material. I have rook f7 check, wins a pawn. And I think taking this pawn first makes more sense, because these two pawns in the corner are going to hang regardless. This knight can't move, or I suppose it can move there. But now after check, king here, and I move up. That looks good to me. Alternatively, I could go here first. But since our opponent allowed it, let's play rook e7 check. The king is forced backwards. And I'm going to go ahead and take this pawn just because I'm feeling a little bit unsure. All right, this comes up. The threat is clearly to bring the rook over and threaten mate. I almost blundered my entire piece. I do have a really nice move here. e6. It threatens the rook in the corner. It looks like it hangs our pawns, but it should allow us to continue to push. So our opponent blocks with the knight. I think here, if I go here, our opponent takes. So maybe I just trade this off. I'm going to play the pawn up to d7, take on a7, take on b6. Okay, rook captures a7. We're up 4 pawns, minute 31 to win. Shouldn't be a huge issue here. Just a little bit nervous as it goes. I'm going to start pushing. This doesn't matter. If our opponent wants to trade off, they certainly can. Now I have these connected pawns, and let's go ahead, let's run them down the board. Check looks really strong here because it's defended. Our opponent can slide over. And now I just play a6. a7, rook up, check. So g captures h3. Our opponent is now likely looking for some spite checks, but these pawns are going to promote down the board. and we will move back to our peak of 1940, assuming we can find a checkmate in a minute and 13. Here, I'm just going to play rook to c8. It looks the simplest. Threatens the promotion with check, which then also picks up the rook. And finally, our opponent does resign, so GG's to them. Let's go ahead, let's look at the game review and see how we did. So this felt like one of my best games yet. We played with a 90.3, and my opponent played with a 78.1. Pretty standard Vienna game. Now, after bishop c4, the idea was going forward as knight to c6, which then you meet them with queen to g4. A really, really beautiful attack, a really fun position to play. After bishop c4, d6, all I did was I tried to get an imbalance in the position by trading off the bishop for the knight. Now, c captures was wrong. I fully expected a captures b6. I've seen this position many times. It's slightly better for white, but it takes a lot to prove. However, after our opponent took back with the c-pawn, what I did was I just played knight to f3. I probably could have struck back immediately with d4, seeing that the queen defends, but I wanted to develop all my pieces pretty steadily. After h6, d4, bishop g4, d captures, bishop captures, and queen captures, we have this mate threat, and this is where we finally won our first piece of material. And you can see already, we are only up one pawn, and the engine evaluation is that this is a +5 position for white. So it really goes to show how developing your pieces in just plain principled chess pays off. Now, after queen to d7, e captures d6, knight to c6, and bishop to b2. It says I pin a pawn, which technically pins the pawn to the rook, I see, but my larger idea was just getting the bishop on a strong diagonal, preparing to castle either way, and getting our rooks active. Now, f6, queen h5 check, keeping the king in the center, kind of punishing our opponent for not castling. After king to d8, castles, queen e8, and we trade off the queens, we arrive in this position where it's now +7. Once again, only up 2 pawns, and a lot of this is due to the strength of our bishops, the strength of our pawns, and the fact that our development is done. After b5, knight b8, rook ad1, knight d7, and f4. I'm creating a lot of initiative. I'm just creating my attack down the center of the board where I'm the strongest. Now after rook c8, excuse me, bishop b3, knight to c5. I did correctly identify that I don't have to worry about the bishop. I can actually just use my pawns in the center of the board that are passed to create a more pertinent threat. So knight captures b3, c captures b3, king d7, rook f to e1, supporting my center pawns. And in this position, you don't have to know a lot about chess to see that 2 pawns that can go the rest of the way down the board are going to be winning, especially when they're connected by rooks. So king to e6, rook f to e1. I probably could have gotten away with the move d7 here, and after rook to d8, then I can play a move like I was looking at rook check. Maybe even a move like rook to f1 here, which our opponent can win the pawn. But I think that we are gaining too much after rook to f7 check. Alternatively, it wants us to go here. And after our opponent takes, then we can play bishop captures. What am I missing here? I'm missing something. Anyways, I don't know what I'm missing, but that's fine. Rook d8, rook c1, and I just activated my rooks. I gave up one of these pawns to get some play. And I used all that pawn advantage that we had built up. Now in this position, our opponent resigned. The line I was looking at here is if they just take on b6, that hangs the rook with queen, or d8 equals queen check. If they were to take here, I promote with a queen, and the quickest mate is actually probably just to let them run away and promote this second pawn to a queen. And as they run away, then I can set up a pretty classic ladder mate. If they come down, nice, easy, and simple victory. So, if you guys enjoyed the content, you can also come find me over on twitch.tv/TristanBrown17, where I stream chess and Catan. And on that note, I will see you guys on the next episode.